2009, those hardcore inner circle Rod Eccles Show listeners, they already know all of this. But this year, the audience, so much of it's a massively new audience that you guys just don't understand or know what I do on a regular basis, because you're all new listeners, and that's great. So I have to take a little bit of time to try to explain it so everybody's not wondering, what the heck is he doing, man? But this is what I do every year around Christmas time, is play Christmas music. And I like doing it. Look, I'm a Christian. I have a Christian education that is the equivalent, and I always put it in this terms, that is the equivalent of somebody who's a reverend. And I'm not really a reverend because I don't lead a church. I'm not in. I don't have a congregation, as it were, or a flock or anything like that. But when it comes to the Bible, I usually know what I'm talking about. I've studied it. And I want people to understand this is the time of year, and I've explained this before, that we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Not that the 25th of December is his actual birthday. I know some people get that confused. And they think, oh yeah, you Christians think that Jesus was born on December 25th. No, we don't. We're not idiots. We're not we understand history, and we know that it is not possible for him to have been born in the winter months. Not possible. We also know, historically speaking, which this also matches up. And I remember people always talking about, hey, that's just a story, man. Well, all the stuff surrounding his birth, like, the census and the tax collection and people having to go to their birth city and that type of thing in ancient Rome, that all happened. So we know all about that stuff. There's no room at the end. We know why there was no room, because everybody had to come back to their city of their birth in order to be counted in tax. And oftentimes when people were poor, didn't have a lot of money, they could afford to stay at an inn, a cheaper inn, if you will. But if there's no room, where do they got to go? Well, oftentimes they could stay in stables. That's a historically documented fact. So it's not out of the ordinary, actually. So all this time, surrounding this time, you're looking at late summer, early fall. We know this. And I've tried to explain that the early Catholic Church decided that they were going to set aside a specific day to try to tamp, like in Constantine and all that kind of stuff. They were going to try to tamp down some of this rampant paganism by trying to eliminate or take over one of the pagans' holidays. It's not even one of the major holidays of paganism, but it was a big winter solstice. So they decided, why did they not choose a summer solstice? I don't know why. Why didn't they choose a spring? Maybe because Easter was too close. I don't know. But they chose a winter solstice, which is around, December 25th-ish. It was a pagan thing. And I know today we have, I was just, somebody told me last night, there's like 200 different holidays between December 1st and 31st or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, big deal. We're not going to have to, there's no need to have to celebrate all of them. But it's a day that the old church, if you will, decided to set aside to celebrate the birth of Christ. That's all it is. And as the calendars throughout the centuries change, and yes, the calendars have changed because the new year wasn't always on January 1st. As the calendars change, it just sort of morphed into this 2-week period of celebration. You got Christmas, and then, a week later, you got New Year's Day, New Year, and all that kind of stuff. But it's not that we as Christians took it over. It's a day that was set aside when the Western Christian world decided to celebrate. The United States is part of that Western Christian world. Plain and simple. I don't know what's so difficult to understand about that. And might I also ask, or add, that notice how of the 4 great religions of the world, there's only one that talks about death and destruction constantly. Now, I know some people are saying 4. I thought there were only 3, right? No, there's 4. Really is 4. We just don't hear a lot about it here in the West, but there's 4. You have Judaism, Christianity, as everybody knows. You have Islam, which everybody knows. But when you head east, forms of Buddhism are huge. Now, you have to understand that the monumental men, as you will say, of these different faiths, 3 of them were pretty much alike. One of them was not. Now, although Moses went to war because God said he was going to have to fight certain things, do certain things, make certain fights, and pray while he was in the midst of the fight in order to get his land of Israel, Moses was actually a peaceful man. In fact, he didn't want to do this. He tried to run and hide. He was a humble man that didn't think that he had it within him to do what God asked. Humble. Not a warrior. Didn't want war. And you have Buddha. What did Buddha ran around preaching about? Knowing the inner self, getting to your own inner self, and opening up to the universe and all that kind of stuff. Again, not a violent man. Not a violent man by nature. And you have Jesus Christ who preached nothing but love, contentment. Yeah, he got angry sometimes because of hypocrisy and all that kind of stuff, but what did he teach war? No. Did he understand war? Yeah, sometimes you have to do it, but did he preach it? No. He was all about loving your neighbor and teaching them about preaching the good news of his coming. So yes, we've had certain people in each of these religions that have twisted it and have gone militaristic in them, and they're not a real Jew if they do that. They're not a real Christian if they do that. They're not a real Buddha if they do that. But one of the 3 major religions, 3 of these things are kind of the same. Remember that song from Sesame Street? The one major religion that goes the opposite direction is Islam. The Quran demands that you and I convert, or we should die. And these are the types of people that the president and others, especially on the liberal side, want to allow into this country. Now, I say that because we just had an entire school district living under fear out in Los Angeles that shut down because they got an email that threatened some schools. New York City, God bless it, a city that's already lived through a major terrorist attack, a couple of them, and they're not really afraid. They're not going to live in fear. They viewed it as a hoax. In fact, you got the New York City police commissioner really chastising the L.A. police commissioner and basically saying, dude, do you know your job? I thought it was one liberal city chastising another liberal city. Saying, do you know your jobs out there? Why the hell are you living in fear? You got people out in the L.A. Council and in the L.A. school board saying, yeah, well, hey, we're living in fear. I guess ISIS won this one today, didn't they? We're going to laugh about it? They shut down an entire school system. Nearly 700,000 children did not go to school because of a hoax threat. And you want to tell me that we should allow more of these people? Look, I created a meme today so people could fully understand what was going on here. Sure, the general population of Syrian refugees may not be terroristic in nature. They may not be. Maybe there are like, many other millions of Muslims that kind of are on the down low, but they still read the Quran. They still believe what the Quran says, but they're not going to act on it, on a lot of that stuff. They're not going to go out and try to behead and wage jihad. Most of them are not. It doesn't take most. I mean, we've heard time and time and time again liberals say, well, it's less than 5%, maybe 1% of these kind of people of Islam are radicals, just 1%. All right, we'll take your 1% number. We'll take the 1% number. You're talking about letting in eventually 100,000 Syrian refugees. What is 1% of 100,000? 1% equals 1,000 potential terrorists let loose on our city streets in this country. It took less than 20 of them to bring this nation to its knees by bringing down the World Trade Center. Less than 1%. It took just 2 to kill 14 and wound half a dozen others in Bernardino, California. In wonderful Paris, France, it took 8 to kill 130 people. That's not 1%, is it? I still haven't gotten to the 1% number. And yet they want to allow in 1,000 new terrorists. That's not living in fear. That's living in stupidity. Because we already know that they exist. We already know that they're infiltrating. We already know that some of them are here. They've already tried to plan attacks and put out attacks. They've been stopped. Others have not, like in San Bernardino. They didn't get stopped. Paris, they didn't get stopped. You can tout all you want to about the numbers that we catch and all the terrorist attacks that we foil, but those aren't the ones that count. Sure, I am sure that there are probably many, many that we do not hear about. Many have been arrested and many plots have been foiled since 9/11 in this country. I know that there's tons that the press doesn't report. We don't hear about it, but that's not the point. The point is that, one, why are our law enforcement agencies on alert and overworked trying to track these people down when they shouldn't be here in the first place? And two, and more importantly, what about the ones that they do not know about or do not catch? Well, they do what they did in San Bernardino. They do what they did in Paris, France. And then they go ahead and create these hoaxes and gloat about. ISIS was gloating about the hoax. Yeah, we shut down L.A. today. So they make you live in fear. They force your government to take away your freedoms and liberties by creating all these ridiculous laws that really don't affect them. It's only going to affect the law-abiding citizen. And then you tell me that you want to allow more of them into the country. Now, I don't know how stupid we have to be as a nation to allow this to continue. And I cannot for the life of me figure out. I know we got to be open and kind, Rod. I get all of this from the liberal left. We got to be accepting and open. No, we don't have to be accepting and open-minded. We are a Judeo-Christian based nation of the West. We do not have to be open and accepting of every single thing, religion, belief that is on this planet. We have the right to determine what type of society that we want to live in. And we've decided that we wanted it to be hugely Judeo-Christian in its ethic. We don't roam the streets with guns, shooting them in the air and raping women and killing, 14-year-olds for being raped. Yeah, that happened in New York. Can you believe that? I don't see anybody in ISIS-run country saying, "Oh yeah, let's be open. We're gonna let in all the infidels." Folks, all it takes is one, not 1%. Just takes one. And then what are they going to do when they start killing more of us? invite more in to show that we're really nice?